I am going to solve this rational equation. It is an equation because it has an equal sign, and I call it a rational equation because I have these ratios here. Okay, rational expressions, the big fractions. And the way I'm going to do it is I'm going to multiply everything through by the LCD magic wand. And when I do that, all my denominators should cancel out. So I need to find the LCD. First, I look at this denominator right here, and I know that I am going to have an x plus 5 in my LCD. And then I look at this denominator here, and it's not factored, so I'm going to go ahead and factor it. X plus 5, x minus 5. And when I look back up at my LCD, I realize I already have an x plus 5, but I'm missing an x minus 5, so I'm going to include that in my LCD. All right, I don't have any denominator here, so my LCD is set. All right, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to rewrite this equation, and I'm going to replace this denominator, x squared minus 25, with its factored form, x squared plus 5, x squared minus 5. Okay, now I'm ready to multiply everything through by the LCD. So this term, and this term. First term times x plus 5, x minus 5. Second term times x plus 5, x minus 5. And very important, the other side times x plus 5, x minus 5. Okay, multiply both sides by the LCD. And now watch what happens. In my first term, x plus 5 over x plus 5 reduces down to 1. So all I'm left with is 1 times x minus 5. 1 times anything is itself, so I'm left with x minus 5, no denominator, plus second term, x plus 5 cancels with x plus 5, x minus 5 cancels with x minus 5, and all I'm left with is a 10. Drop down the equals. And then over here, I'm left with 1 times x plus 5 times x minus 5. Okay, if you FOIL this out, you are going to get x squared, first 2, outer 2, inner 2, last 2, making a note that the middle terms will cancel out. All right, let's take a look at what we have now. X minus 5 plus 10 equals x squared minus 25. Okay, now I notice that I have an exponent of 2. So this is going to be quadratic. It's a quadratic equation now. And to solve a quadratic equation, I need to set it equal to 0. So I'm going to leave this x squared where it is, and I'm going to move these three things so that I have nothing else on the left except for a 0. So to get rid of an x, I'll subtract x from both sides. To get rid of a plus 5, I will add 5 to both sides. And to get rid of a plus 10, I will subtract 10 from both sides. All right, now x minus x cancels out. Negative 5 plus 5, 10 minus 10. They all turn into 0. So 0 equals, and on the right-hand side, I have just that x squared comes down, minus x comes down, and then if I put these three together, let's see what that'll give me. It's going to give me minus 30. And this is a quadratic equation. All right, to solve a quadratic equation, you set it equal to 0. I am going to factor this trinomial right here You know what? Let me move it up a little bit. Let me make a little more space. All right, let me take this quadratic equation. I'll bring it up here. All right, so all I did was I took this and I brought it up here. Let's go ahead and factor. 0 equals, this is an easy 1, because it starts with the number 1. My first two terms are going to be x and x. Last two terms multiply to give me 30 and subtract to give me -1. So that's going to be, let me list my possibilities here. 1 and 30, 2 and 15, 3 and 10, or 5 and 6. And you're going to see that it's 5 and 6. So I will have a 5 here and a 6 here. When I subtract them, I'm going to want to get a -1. So that means my larger one is negative, the smaller one is positive. All right. And if you FOIL this out, I guarantee you will get this. Now, either one of these factors can be 0. So I'm going to set both of them to be 0. X plus 5 could be 0, or x minus 6 can be 0. Let's solve both of them. Subtract 5 from both sides. -5 equals x. That's one of my possible answers. Over here, I'll add 6 to both sides, and I will get 6 equals x. That's my other possible answer. Now, these are both possible answers, but if I put them both in, the computer's going to tell me I'm wrong. All of that work, and it's telling me I'm wrong. Well, that's because by the nature of the original equation, you have domain restrictions. There are certain numbers that x cannot be. X cannot be a -5, because if I plug in a -5, I will get a 0 in the denominator, and you can't have that. X can also not be +5, because if I plug a +5, I would get a 0 in the denominator. Okay, so my domain restrictions, which I'm going to put up here at the top, x cannot be a +5 or a -5. And when I go to look at my two answers right here, I get a -5 and a 6. Now the 6 is going to work out just fine, but the -5 is not going to work out. That's an extraneous solution, and I just throw it away. So my answer here, x equals 6.